Your brain is not a runaway train. It's plastic. It's adaptable. It's trainable. Every time you choose to direct your attention, every time you resist a distraction, every time you breathe with intention, your neural circuitry is changing. Right now, let's get this straight. Your mind is not your enemy. It's a powerful servant, but a terrible master. And for too many people, it's running wild with anxiety, overthinking, regret, comparison, fear. It's consuming them one thought loop at a time, but you can take it back. You can reclaim authority over your thoughts. Let me tell you something most people don't realize. You're not stuck. You're not broken. You're not doomed to repeat the same patterns forever. The human brain, your brain, is not a static machine. It is a living, breathing system capable of rewiring itself every single day. What you think, how you feel, what you focus on, it's not hardwired into who you are. It's learned, and if it's learned, it can be unlearned, rewritten, rebuilt, reshaped. Now I know, you've had years, maybe decades, of anxious thinking, self-sabotaging behavior, cycles of procrastination, addiction to doubt, loops of fear. And somewhere along the way, you started believing this is just who you are. This is my mind. This is how I think. This is just the way it is. No, that is a lie. It's not who you are. It's who you've been conditioned to be. And here's the truth. Every time you think a thought, you're strengthening a neural pathway. Every time you act a certain way, you're deepening that groove, but it's not permanent. It's plastic, malleable, changeable. You're not stuck. You're in a pattern, and patterns can be broken. When people say, I can't change, what they're really saying is, I haven't trained. Because change isn't about willpower. It's about understanding the way your brain works, and then using that understanding to take back control. Your brain is constantly adapting to the experiences you give it. If you wake up every day and scroll through your phone, feed it random noise, negativity, and comparison, you're training your mind to crave chaos. You're teaching your nervous system to expect overstimulation and anxiety. You're building a brain that thrives on distraction, and over time that becomes your baseline, your default. But just like you built it, you can rebuild it. You can design your mind the same way a sculptor designs a masterpiece, intentional, slow, precise. You can take that reactive, scattered mind and train it to become focused, clear, and grounded. How? You start small. You start now. You start by breaking the cycle of automatic behavior. You think it's not a big deal to pick up your phone the second you wake up. But what you're really doing is reinforcing a pathway of dependence. You're handing over your attention, your most valuable asset, before your conscious mind is even online. But what if instead you gave yourself space? Just 10 minutes of stillness, breath, no inputs, no noise, just observation. Do that for 30 days and you'll start to notice something. Your thoughts become less chaotic. Your cravings lose intensity. Your emotional responses slow down. Why? Because your brain is changing. The same way a muscle gets stronger under resistance, your brain gets stronger through repeated intention. But it also works the other way. You don't use it, you lose it. You keep reacting the same way, thinking the same thing, consuming the same inputs. You're reinforcing a version of yourself that no longer serves you. So let me say it again. You're not stuck. You've just been repeating a script that your brain has memorized, but you can rewrite that script. This isn't spiritual fluff or motivational hype. This is neuroscience. When you direct your attention with intention, you activate circuits in your prefrontal cortex responsible for executive control, focus, decision making, and willpower. And the more you use those circuits, the stronger they get. You literally build the capacity for control. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy. It means it's possible, and possibility is power. Because when you understand that your brain is changeable, you realize that the future version of you isn't limited by the past version. It's shaped by what you choose to do next. Right now, today, you're not a victim of your thoughts. You're the architect of your mind, and every day, every choice, every moment of discipline is another brick laid in the structure of who you're becoming. But don't wait for motivation. Don't wait to feel ready. The brain doesn't change through feelings. It changes through repetition. Show up even when you don't want to. Focus when your mind screams to scroll. Breathe when your nervous system wants to panic. You do this not because it's easy, but because it's how you build the mind you need to face this life with power. Neuroplasticity doesn't care about how bad your past has been. It cares about what you do right now. That means healing is possible. Growth is possible. Clarity is possible. I want you to think about this. The brain is always working to serve you, but it's working off the blueprint you give it. And if the blueprint is filled with fear, shame, guilt, regret, then guess what? That becomes your operating system. But if you start to input order, structure, truth, and meaning, you change the foundation. And when the foundation shifts, the whole system shifts with it. Don't underestimate the power of small changes, because that's how neural pathways are built. One signal at a time, one decision at a time. And once those pathways get strong enough, they become automatic. That's how habits form. That's how new identities are born. You're not just trying to change what you do. You're changing who you are at a neurological level. And that's why you have to keep showing up, even when no one's watching, even when there's no applause, even when your emotions tell you it's not working, because the brain doesn't change overnight. It changes over time. It's consistency that rewires the system. You want to take back control of your mind, then start treating your mind like something sacred. Start feeding it truth. Start moving it with intention. Start training it with discipline. Because the world is not going to slow down for you. The chaos isn't going to pause. The noise isn't going to stop. But your power isn't in changing the world, it's in changing how your brain interacts with it. You can build a mind that doesn't get hijacked by anxiety. You can build a mind that doesn't crumble under stress. You can build a mind that sees clearly, thinks sharply, and acts decisively. That's not hype. That's biology, but it requires your participation. You've got to stop treating your mind like a dumping ground for every distraction, every impulse, every fear, and start treating it like a temple, a system, a tool of creation, not destruction. When you understand how plastic your brain is, you'll stop saying, I am this way, and start saying, I've practiced being this way, but I can practice being someone different, because you can. You really can. And I want you to imagine what happens when that truth hits your system. Deeply, unshakably. When you realize you're not trapped. When you realize you're just untrained. When you realize that change isn't some distant idea. It's a biological fact waiting to be activated by your decisions. If there's one thing that changes everything, your productivity, your peace, your progress, it's your ability to focus. Focus isn't just a tool for work. It's not just something you need to finish tasks. It is the gateway to mastering your internal world. But here's what most people get wrong. They think focus is something you either have or you don't. That it's a personality trait. That some people were just born with laser, sharp attention and others weren't. That's a myth. Focus is not a fixed trait. It is a skill. And like any skill, it can be trained. It can be built. It can be strengthened. The truth is, your ability to focus is governed by how your brain allocates attention. And attention is a limited resource. You only have so much of it each day. Every time you check your phone, switch tasks, or drift into mindless thinking, you're spending that currency. You're burning neural fuel, and the more you split your attention, the weaker your focus becomes. So if you've been feeling distracted, foggy, restless, it's not that you're broken. It's that you're untrained. You've allowed your brain to be hijacked by an environment that's built to steal your focus. Think about this. Every app, every notification, every pop-up on your screen has been engineered to grab your attention. They don't want you to focus. They want you to click. They want you to scroll. They want you to consume. And the more you give in, the more your brain adapts to that rhythm. You start expecting quick hits of dopamine, fast feedback, endless novelty, and what suffers? Depth, stillness, thinking, clarity. But here's the good news, you can reverse it. You can recondition your mind to sustain focus, to go deep, to stay present longer than you thought possible. It starts by changing your relationship with distraction. Distraction is not just about your phone, it's about your nervous system. Your mind wanders because it hasn't been taught to stay. It drifts because you haven't demanded control. But the moment you decide to stop reacting and start directing your attention, you begin to take that power back. Your ability to focus lives in a part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex. That's the part responsible for decision making, long-term planning, self-control. But here's the thing, it needs training. It needs resistance. Just like a muscle grows through challenge, your prefrontal cortex strengthens through effortful focus. So when you sit down and force yourself to pay attention, when you resist the urge to check that message, when you hold your attention on one task, one breath, one problem, you are literally changing your brain's chemistry and structure. The neurons responsible for sustained attention fire together, wire together, and strengthen. You begin to build a brain that can hold focus, that can resist distraction, that can finish what it starts. But training focus isn't just about discipline, it's about awareness. You have to know what pulls you out of presence. Is it anxiety? Is it boredom? Is it fear of missing out? When you can identify the trigger, you can interrupt the pattern. You can pause, you can breathe, you can recenter. You also need to understand your mental limits. You can't focus for 8 hours straight. That's not how the brain works. You need cycles of deep work followed by rest. Real, intentional rest, not scrolling, not noise, just stillness, recovery. And here's something most people overlook. The body sets the foundation for mental focus. If your body is overstimulated, underslept, or inflamed by poor habits, your brain won't focus no matter how hard you try. That means focus starts the night before, when you prioritize sleep, when you limit blue light, when you put the phone down and let your nervous system unwind. Then in the morning, you lock in your focus by giving your brain the signals it needs. Natural light, movement, breath, hydration, all of this sets the tone. All of this tells your brain, we're clear, we're ready, let's go. Now once you're in that state, you guard it, you protect it. You don't let every beep and buzz tear your attention apart. You turn off notifications, you close tabs, you commit to one thing at a time, and when your mind wanders, which it will, you don't judge it. You bring it back, over and over. That's the rep. That's the work. That's how focus is built. You see, the most dangerous thing about distraction isn't that it wastes your time. It's that it weakens your identity. Every time you break focus, you send a signal to your brain, I can't stay with hard things. You teach yourself to escape discomfort. You wire a mind that avoids effort, but when you hold your focus, even for a minute longer than you want to, you send a different signal, I am in control. And that changes everything, because focus is how you build anything great. A great body, a great relationship, a great business, a great life. It all starts with your ability to direct your mind. If you can't focus, you can't build, you can't listen, you can't think deeply, you can't learn. And if you can't learn, you stay stuck. But once you train focus, you unlock potential. You start doing work that matters. You start engaging with people more deeply. You start living with intention. And this isn't just about performance, it's about peace. When your mind is scattered, you feel anxious, overwhelmed, reactive. But when your mind is focused, you feel calm, clear, grounded. That's what most people are really chasing. Not more productivity, but more peace. More presence. You want to stop feeling like you're drowning in noise. Start by mastering your focus, and that begins today. It begins the moment you stop saying, I'm just not a focused person, and start saying, I'm training my brain to focus. Because that's the truth. Every time you choose stillness over scrolling, breath over reaction, depth over speed, you're building a new mind, and that mind is strong. That mind is centered. That mind doesn't get pulled by every wave. So stop waiting for focus to show up like a miracle. Start building it like a skill, because when you take control of your focus, you take control of your future. One of the most empowering truths we have about the human brain is this: it is not fixed. It is not stuck. It is not frozen in time, locked into old patterns. Your brain is plastic, not the kind that melts, but the kind that molds, adapts, and reshapes based on how you live, think, feel, and act. This concept is called neuroplasticity, and once you understand it, you'll never again feel trapped by your thoughts, your habits, or your history. The story most people have in their heads is this: this is just the way I am. I've always been anxious. I can't focus. I've never been disciplined. They wear these statements like an identity, but these aren't identities. They're just snapshots of a brain in a certain state, and states can be changed. Circuits can be rewired. Biology can be shifted. Neuroplasticity is the mechanism that makes that possible. Your brain is made up of billions of neurons, electrical cells that fire signals across tiny gaps called synapses. Every time you think a thought, feel an emotion, or perform an action, certain neural circuits fire. If you repeat that thought, emotion, or behavior often enough, those circuits become stronger. They wire in, they form a pattern, and eventually they start to fire automatically. That's how habits form. That's how anxiety takes root. That's how negative self-talk becomes a loop. But, and this is the key, just because it's wired in doesn't mean it's permanent. The same process that builds those patterns can unbuild them. If you can teach your brain to go down one path, you can teach it to go down another. You just have to interrupt the old signal, and reinforce the new one, again and again. Let's say you wake up every morning, and the first thing your brain offers you is stress. Maybe you're not even fully conscious yet, and already your thoughts are racing. What if I don't have time? What if I fail? What if something goes wrong today? That kind of automatic fear response is a conditioned pathway. It's been built over time, maybe from past experiences or chronic overwhelm. But it's not you. It's just a track your brain plays on repeat. Neuroplasticity means you can change the track. You can stop that stress loop before it gains momentum. You can intervene, and when you do that repeatedly, your brain starts to notice. It starts to say, oh, we're not doing panic first thing in the morning anymore, we're doing breath, we're doing calm, okay. And slowly, the old pathways begin to fade from disuse, and new ones begin to strengthen from repetition. But here's where it gets even more powerful. Neuroplasticity is not just passive. It's not something that just happens to you. It's active. It requires deliberate engagement. Your brain changes in response to where you put your attention. What you focus on, you strengthen. What you ignore, you weaken. That means every single choice you make, what you look at, what you listen to, what you rehearse in your mind, is either reinforcing an old self or creating a new one. When you tell yourself, I can't, and you believe it, you are hardwiring defeat. But when you interrupt that narrative, even if it's uncomfortable, and say, I'm learning, I'm training, I'm rewiring, you begin to reshape the identity itself, and here's the science to back it. Neuroplasticity is driven by intensity, repetition, and reward. If you engage deeply with a new thought or habit, if you bring strong focus to it, do it consistently, and associate it with something meaningful, your brain will encode it faster. That's why shallow efforts don't change people. That's why dabbling in positivity for a few minutes a week doesn't erase years of fear. You've got to go all in. You've got to give your brain a reason to care, and your brain does care. It's wired to help you adapt. The problem is, most people don't know they're teaching their brain the wrong lessons. Every time you repeat a negative thought, your brain doesn't know it's harmful. It just knows you're giving it energy. So it strengthens it. That's why awareness is key. You've got to become a conscious participant in your own rewiring. Now, here's what people ask. If neuroplasticity is real, how long does it take to rewire a habit? And the answer is, it depends. Not just on the habit, but on how intensely you engage with it. Change happens faster when you're emotionally invested, when there's urgency, when there's vision, when there's pain pushing you or purpose pulling you. But it always begins the same way, with a decision to challenge the current pattern. Let's take anxiety. Maybe your brain has been conditioned to jump into a stress response the moment uncertainty arises. Neuroplasticity doesn't erase the uncertainty, but it teaches your brain to respond to it differently. You can teach your nervous system to slow down instead of speed up, to breathe instead of spiral, to ask questions instead of predict catastrophe. That's what it means to rewire your brain, not to erase the external chaos, but to master your internal reaction to it. And this applies to everything: focus, self-worth, discipline, resilience, peace. Every state you want to experience is trainable. It might not feel natural at first. That's okay. New circuits always feel awkward in the beginning. That's the sign that your brain is adapting. That's the friction you want. It means you're stepping into change. The beautiful part is, your brain loves change when it's given the right structure. It thrives on learning, challenge, and reward. But you have to feed it the right inputs. You have to remove the noise and introduce clarity. You have to remove the reactive patterns and install intentional ones. Start with one thing, one habit, one new direction, and do it not just once, but consistently with focus and emotion. Tell your brain, this matters. Remind it, we're not going back. Reward it, this feels good. That's how new circuits stick. And if you mess up, if you fall back into old habits, you don't judge. You don't catastrophize, you say, this is part of the process. Because even your ability to bounce back is a neural pattern. It can be learned, it can be strengthened. That's the power of neuroplasticity. It doesn't care about your past. It doesn't care what you did yesterday. It cares about what you do next. And this is where your environment plays a massive role. Your surroundings, your routines, your people. They all act as cues to the brain. They either reinforce the old story or support the new one. If you're serious about change, you have to build an ecosystem that reflects the identity you're trying to wire in. And remember this, rewiring your brain doesn't mean you become a different person. It means you become more you, the you that's been buried under noise, the you that's been trapped in survival. The you that was waiting for permission to wake up. You don't need permission anymore, you need action. You need pattern breaking, you need vision, and then you need to show up again and again, until your brain stops asking, is this real? And starts saying, this is who we are now. That's what makes change permanent. When your brain stops fighting the new story and starts embracing it as truth. So take this seriously. The most powerful tool you will ever have to change your life is not willpower, it's neuroplasticity. Willpower might get you started, but neuroplasticity, training your brain, reconditioning your nervous system, that's what keeps you going when the motivation fades, and you have it right now, whether you're 18 or 80. Whether you feel stuck or inspired, your brain is ready. It just needs your focus. It needs your intention. It needs your consistency, because the circuits you build today become the habits of tomorrow. And the habits of tomorrow become the identity you live out for the rest of your life. Your brain is not your enemy, it's your greatest ally. Train it, direct it, rewire it, because when you rewire your brain, you redefine what's possible. Most people live as if every thought that crosses their mind is a command, a verdict, a truth. They let thoughts run wild like untrained dogs and follow them wherever they go. I'm not good enough. I'll never change. What if everything goes wrong? And instead of asking where these thoughts come from or why they're there, they just accept them, internalize them, let them shape their emotions, their decisions, their lives. But here's the shift. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. That single shift is the doorway to reclaiming your mental freedom. Your thoughts are just mental events, flashes of electrical signals, language patterns, echoes of past experiences, biological predictions. But none of that defines you. You are the awareness behind all of it. You are the one who sees the thought. You are the one who can choose whether to feed it or let it fade. Now, when we talk about taking control of the mind, this is the battlefield. It's not about suppressing your thoughts or pretending they're not there. It's about recognizing them, watching them arise, and choosing not to be owned by them. That is mental sovereignty. Let me be clear. Your brain will generate thoughts constantly. That's its job. It predicts, it evaluates, it reminds, and many of those thoughts are not helpful. Why? Because your brain is wired for survival, not happiness. It looks for what's wrong. It scans for danger. It replays failure so you can avoid it next time. But in a world where you're not being chased by tigers, this protective mechanism turns inward. It attacks you. It doubts you. It convinces you that you are the problem. And that's why observing your thoughts, rather than identifying with them, is so critical. When a thought comes up like, I'm worthless, instead of grabbing onto it, you pause, you breathe, you look at it as if it's outside of you. Interesting, that thought is here again. You don't judge it, you don't react to it. You observe it like a scientist looking through a microscope, detached, curious, free. And here's what happens when you do that. The thought loses its power. The moment you stop reacting automatically, the pattern weakens. The neural circuit that generated that thought is no longer being reinforced. And the more you do this, the more your brain learns that not every thought deserves a reaction. You start to gain space between stimulus and response. That space is your freedom. That space is where transformation lives. You begin to notice, hey, every time I get close to success, my brain throws a thought at me, you'll screw it up. But now you don't panic. You say, there it is again. You're not drowning in it anymore. You're standing on the shore watching the wave roll in and roll out. That's mastery. That's control. Most people never experience that. They live in reactivity. Every thought causes a reaction. Every feeling becomes a spiral, and over time this becomes identity. I'm just a negative person. I can't help it. But none of that is true. They just never learned to observe the mind from the outside. They were taught to live inside the noise instead of above it. Let's take this even deeper. Your thoughts are shaped by countless variables. Your biology, your sleep, your nutrition, your stress levels, your past trauma, even the lighting in your room. And yet we treat them as ultimate truth. Imagine waking up tired, underslept, low on blood sugar, and your brain whispers, what's the point of even trying today? That's not wisdom. That's just chemistry. That's a signal. And you get to decide whether to act on it or let it pass. When you become the observer of your thoughts, you also become the architect of your behavior. You stop running your life based on mental weather. Just because it's stormy in your head today doesn't mean you have to cancel the mission. You still show up, you still do the work, you still live by decision, not by default, and the beauty of this approach is, it doesn't require you to change every thought. That's impossible. The goal is not to control the thoughts. The goal is to control your relationship to them. You are building metacognition, the ability to think about your thinking. That is what separates the reactive from the deliberate, the emotionally enslaved from the mentally free. Now let me give you a practical method that reinforces this mindset: labeling. When a thought arises, especially a negative or intrusive one, don't resist it. Label it. Say, this is a fear thought. This is a self-doubt loop. This is past trauma replaying. What this does is give your brain context. It breaks the automatic spell. It puts you back in the driver's seat. Because the moment you name a thought, you reduce its emotional charge. The brain shifts from emotional circuitry into executive function, into analysis. And when you analyze instead of react, you make better choices. You interrupt the old cascade of emotion, action, regret. You install a new pattern: observe, label, respond. Over time, this rewires your identity. You stop saying, I am anxious, and start saying, I'm experiencing an anxious thought. That distinction is everything. One creates a cage, the other creates a path forward. You also begin to realize that most of your thoughts are repetitive. Science shows us that over 90% of our thoughts today are the same as yesterday. That means the mind is a loop, and if you don't interrupt it, it becomes your story. But if you do interrupt it even once, you change the trajectory. You begin to ask, what else could be true? What's a more empowering interpretation? What does this moment require from me, not emotionally, but objectively? This isn't about becoming robotic, it's about becoming intentional. Letting your values guide your actions, not your emotional storms. Because the more you watch your thoughts without grabbing onto them, the more you access a deeper intelligence, a place of calm, clarity, purpose. That's who you really are.